sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Hey everyone, you wanted a deep dive on those epic musical rivalries where it went way beyond just competition, like straight up trying to end careers.
Oh yeah, those are the best.
We dug into this article, 10 musicians with that destroy your enemy vibe. Grunge to hip hop and beyond. It gets intense.
What's fascinating is how often these rivalries tap into something bigger, like what people were anxious about in that era.
Like a snapshot of cultural anxieties playing out through music.
Exactly. It's deeper than just chart battles.
So our main source is this article listing these 10 musicians who were, well, let's just say they weren't sending each other holiday cards.
Right.
First thing we noticed, lots of these weren't just personal beef.
Oh, absolutely. It was full-on genre warfare sometimes, like Metallica versus the whole 80s hair metal scene.
Ah, Metallica. That's a good one to start with.
It went way beyond just style, right? Metallica saw hair metal as fake, shallow. They wanted to bring back that raw energy, that metal edge.
And they made it very public, didn't they? I mean, that picture of Lars Ulrich throwing darts at a Winger poster.
Brutal.
That was a statement.
And I think it tapped into a feeling that was growing back then. Late 80s, people were kind of over the excess, the artificial stuff.
But they wanted something more real.
Yeah, exactly. And Metallica, with their sound, the lyrics, it fit that mood perfectly.
Like they were saying, you're either with us, raw and heavy, or you're with the Hairspray.
Yeah.
No in between.
Right. Musically, too, it was total opposites. Hair metal, all melodic, catchy, super polished. Metallica, deliberately abrasive, harsh vocals, complex music.
So not just clashing personalities, but two whole different ideas of what music should even be.
And it's FOR, right?
Yeah.
That's what made that rivalry so huge. Not just bands fighting, but two visions of what metal, what rock even was supposed to represent.
Okay, so we've got genre wars. What other kinds of battles did we find in this article?
Well, sometimes things get very personal. Former friends, collaborators, turning into enemies, feuds that could fuel like a whole album's worth of diss tracks.
Oh, the implosions. Gotta love those. Any examples that stand out?
Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails, and Marilyn Manson, textbook example, started as friends, collaborators. Reznor even signed Manson to his label. But then...
Things went south. What happened?
Well, from Manson's side, he felt Reznor wasn't supporting him enough, felt betrayed, overshadowed, that resentment built up, and it spilled into their music.
Ah, so Reznor fires back with a diss track.
I gotta hear about this. Starfuckers, Inc., widely considered to be aimed right at Manson. Lyrics are brutal, personal. Reznor even sampled Manson's own interviews in the song, like twisting his words around.
Ouch. You can practically hear the anger in that song.
Yeah.
But beyond the personal stuff, what's interesting is how it reflects something we see a lot in the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
That tension between the established artist and the newcomer. Mentorship, maybe exploitation, who knows? All those power dynamics get messy.
Right. It's like a classic tale, the apprentice versus the master, but with a dark industrial twist.
Exactly. Reminds us, the music biz, as glamorous as it seems, can be cutthroat. Relationships become casualties of ambition, ego, all that. So we've got genre wars, personal vendettas. But what about those artists who use the system itself to, critique the system, almost like judo turning its force against it?
Ah, that's where Damon Albarn comes in, frontman of Blur. He created Gorillaz, the virtual band, specifically to mess with what he saw as, MTV's shallowness and all that manufactured pop.
Gorillaz, those cartoon guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, their videos were trippy, creative.
Totally. But beyond the cool visuals, Albarn was making a statement. By making the band virtual, he highlighted how fake, how constructed pop stardom had become.
So he was critiquing the industry from within. Clever.
He knew MTV was powerful, shaping tastes, but too focused on image. So Gorillaz was his way to infiltrate that system, to use their platform against them.
Like holding up a mirror to MTV, showing them how absurd it all was, the obsession with image over substance.
And it worked. Gorillaz became huge. Proof that you could challenge those conventions and still make it mainstream.
It's not just about making good music. It's about using your platform to say something, to shake things up.
And that's what's so cool about digging into these rivalries. It's not always just personal or creative. It ties into bigger cultural stuff. That tension between rebelling and conforming, being real, versus being fake.
And we're just getting started. We've got more rivalries to unpack, from artists who saw themselves as like musical saviors to some battles that'll leave you scratching your head.
Stay tuned. Things are going to get even more interesting as we go deeper into these conflicts and the power of that creative tension.
Back for more on The Deep Dive. We're neck deep in musical rivalries, those times when artists aren't just battling for fans, but for like creative dominance, the soul of music itself.
And sometimes just to straight up destroy each other.
Exactly. What we've seen is how these fights often reflect those bigger societal anxieties we talked about, like Metallica versus hair metal, right when the 80s were ending. People wanted something real.
Yeah. Like these artists are picking up on those vibes, those undercurrents that maybe we're not even fully aware of.
Speaking of vibes, you mentioned earlier, some artists treat the whole music scene as their personal battleground.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone come to mind?
Roger Waters. His never-ending feud with, well, basically the rest of Pink Floyd.
Whoa, Pink Floyd. Now that's a band with history and some serious internal drama. What was Waters' deal?
He was convinced that he was Pink Floyd, the creative core, the brain behind it all, especially those concept albums, The Wall, Animals. When he left in '85, he thought the band should just be done.
Talk about ego. So he actually tried to stop them from using the name Pink Floyd.
Oh, yeah, he went to court, tried to block them. Didn't work out, though. But even now, he's super critical of the Gilmour-led Pink Floyd, calls it inferior, not the real vision.
So it becomes this battle of egos, a fight for the legacy, what Pink Floyd means. Do you think, even all the drama, the band would reach those heights without Waters?
Man, that's the question, isn't it? Was that tension what fueled them, made them so great? Or would they have been even bigger with, like, less friction? We'll never know, but their story shows how messy ambition and art can get.
Okay, so artists fighting for control against genres. But what about those fighting for something bigger? Recognition, fairness.
Yeah.
Those always hit different.
For sure. Those are the ones who often aren't battling another artist, but the whole system, the industry machine.
Yeah.
Martha Wash is a prime example, fighting for her place in the dance music world.
Oh, man, that voice. Those 90s dance anthems, everybody dance now, gonna make you sweat. Instant classics.
And Martha Wash was that voice. But here's the thing, she was a studio singer. They often used other women to lip sync her parts in videos, on stage, everything.
Wait, seriously, they tried to erase her from her own songs? That's messed up.
It was common back then in dance music, sadly. Image, the spectacle came before acknowledging the real talent.
But she didn't just take it, right?
No way. She sued, fought for her rights, and she won. Got credit and money for her work. Huge win, not just for her, but for background vocalists who get exploited all the time.
It's a good reminder that those catchy hooks, those beats we love, come from real people pouring their hearts into it. They deserve respect, not to be erased.
Totally. Sometimes it takes someone like Martha Wash, brave enough to challenge the system, to make things fairer for everyone. Her story reminds us these rivalries aren't always ego. They can be about what's right. Basic fairness.
So we've covered a lot. Genre wars, personal stuff, battles for control, fights for justice. But there's another type that feels like almost inevitable. When the old guard meets the new wave, things get explosive.
The classic generational clash. And few moments capture that better than Nirvana showing up in the early 90s challenging everything hair metal stood for.
Nirvana, man. They were a musical earthquake. Their rawness, honesty, it just blew apart that whole 80s glam rock thing. I remember feeling that shift so strongly.
It was huge. Kurt Cobain, with his lyrics, that anti-establishment attitude, he became the voice for a whole generation that was over hair metal's excesses, the focus on image.
It wasn't just music, was it? It was a whole culture shift. Rejecting that macho posturing, the obsession with looks.
For sure. Nirvana was authenticity, raw emotion, the DIY spirit. People were tired of being told what to like, and Nirvana gave them an alternative.
It's crazy how fast things changed. Hair metal went from untouchable to kind of embarrassing, practically overnight.
It shows the power of a band, hitting at the right time, capturing the mood. Nirvana wasn't just making music, they articulated a feeling, and it resonated with millions. That need for something truer.
It's cool how these generational clashes go beyond music, right? It's
Yeah.
about ideas, values, who gets to decide what's cool or meaningful. Each generation needs its own rebellion soundtrack.
And those battles never really end. They just morph as new generations come up, challenging the rules, making their own anthems. That keeps music alive, relevant.
Speaking of evolving, We talked about artists who challenged the system from the inside, like Damon Albarn with Gorillaz. What about those who are more direct, using their platform to push for social change?
Ah, the musical activists. Those who see their art as a weapon, fighting injustice. Countless examples. But one that stands out is Public Enemy, that hip-hop group from the late 80s.
Man, Public Enemy, they were a force. That raw energy, the urgency in their music, you couldn't ignore it.
It was more than music, it was a message. A critique of racism, police brutality, all those systemic issues. They used their platform to challenge the status quo, make those marginalized voices heard, inspire action.
Their music was confrontational, challenging, sometimes even controversial. But it made people listen.
Absolutely. They weren't afraid to spark those tough conversations, make people uncomfortable, force them to see those realities, racism, oppression, all of it. Not just entertainers, but activists using art for change.
And their impact was huge. They brought racial justice into the mainstream, inspired a whole generation of artists, activists to use their voices.
It became the soundtrack for that fight for equality, a call to action for those feeling marginalized. Their influence is still felt today in artists like Kendrick Lamar, Beyoncé, that fearless social commentary.
It reminds us that music isn't just entertainment. It can be that force for change, to challenge things, inspire people to fight for a better world.
And in those moments when music becomes more than personal, when it taps into something universal, that's when it's truly powerful.
So as we continue through these musical rivalries, let's remember, these clashes aren't always about ego or ambition. Sometimes they go way deeper than that.
They can reflect our struggles, our anxieties, our desire for something better.
And that's what makes them so compelling, so human. Back again for the deep dive. We've really gone deep on these musical rivalries, genre wars, personal feuds, you name it.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride through music history.
What's amazing to me is how music can act like this mirror, reflecting not just the artist, but what's going on in the world at that time.
Right.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious, are there any downsides to these intense rivalries?
Oh, for sure. While that competition can push artists to create amazing music, it can also overshadow the art itself.
You get so caught up in the drama, the gossip, that you kind of forget about the actual music.
Exactly. It becomes more about who's winning than the creative expression.
And that hurts everyone, not just the artists. It creates this environment where shock value and controversy matter more than artistry.
Yeah.
And what about the toll it takes on the artists themselves? All that pressure, the competition, it can't be healthy.
Definitely not. It's incredibly stressful, emotionally draining. We see so many artists burn out, struggle with addiction, mental health issues, and the industry pressure just makes it worse.
It's easy to forget that behind those big personas, there are real people with real struggles.
Right.
We got to remember that human cost, even while we're enjoying the music, the drama.
Absolutely. Finding that balance is important, appreciating the creative energy while being mindful of the potential damage.
As we wrap up, it feels like we've just scratched the surface of this whole world of musical rivalries. They show how powerful music is to provoke, inspire, connect us across generations.
It's a reminder that music is so much more than just something to listen to. It reflects who we are, our struggles, our wins, and how we change over time.
So, what rivalry is happening right now do you think we'll still be talking about years from now? And what will those conversations tell us about music today?
That's a good one. I think we're seeing those genre lines blur more and more. Artists are blending styles, defying expectations of what music should sound like.
So the most interesting battles are happening in those uncharted areas, where it's all about innovation, experimentation.
Exactly. It's like the battle lines are being redrawn, not just between artists, but between different ideas of what music can be.
And who gets to define it?
Right. So pay attention to those new sounds, the clashes, the artists who are pushing boundaries. Those are the rivalries shaping the future of music.
And maybe one day we'll look back at these battles with the same kind of awe we feel, looking at those classic clashes from the past.
Because ultimately, these rivalries, as messy as they can be, show just how powerful music is. To move us, challenge us, connect us, nothing else does that quite like music.
Thanks for diving deep with us, everyone. We hope this exploration sparked your curiosity and maybe gave you a new appreciation for that constant push and pull in the music world. Creativity, competition, collaboration. It's what keeps things interesting.